This video will be named 2 after the first one, which is named 1. This is just my posts I'm looking at under this heading of a note that I've had since January 2014. And when the first video ended, I was just telling you about how I pushed her back, shoved her back. So she sat down on her bed. Then John was kind of yelling. He was getting mad too. Like, you two had better stop it. And I went on to our room. John was behind me still. And called my mom. Well, I know better from years of hard lessons. You don't call my mother after 10 o'clock if it's not super important. She just did not like that. She didn't appreciate it when anybody else did it either. You know, time to quieten down. And basically, right after the news, bedtime. That's how it'd been for years. That's how we lived our life. That's how I lived my married life. Except for maybe on weekends, we'd stay up a little bit. Or if we were out, like with Bob, our friend Bob. And I woke her up telling her what had happened. I was just fuming like you would, well, you'd believe it. If it had been you, I'm sure it would have upset you too. I said, Mom, I'm going to place a call on her. She said, oh, Veronica, please don't do that. Why, Mom, why? She's trying to kill me. Well, don't do that. She won't get the help she needs from them. See, my mom already knew. She wasn't going to get any help from that bunch, as we referred to them to. That bunch, Family Services. And she was probably right. I simmered down, got my sleep. The next morning, I was feeling a lot better. You know, how sometimes things just linger. Well, it was on to the next thing. But all up until that point, with John on his medicine, John on his heart pills, John with his nitroglycerin, John having been in the hospital over here at Bothwell with a heart problem. In fact, him and my Uncle John were hospitalized at the very same time. So when Bradley was a baby and I was still packing him around in a car seat, I was just running myself ragged through that whole period of time. And my mom and dad had gone down to Joplin. Excuse me. Joplin, or it might have been Springfield, but I think it was Joplin, for a letter carriers convention. And I couldn't get a hold of them when I needed to find out about Uncle John. What should I do? The hospital had called me, and they wanted me to make the decision whether for them to cut into his lung and try to find out what was the problem or not to. So I told him to go ahead. And my mom thanked me for that later, reassuring me that I had made the right choice, because if he had died before they got back from the convention, she would have really, really hated it. It wouldn't have been my fault, but she would have hung herself, out to dry, so to speak, if she hadn't um, been able to see her oldest brother, before he died, because she and he were always real close. So, but running myself ragged, getting Bradley in and out of the car at least a couple times a day and over there every day to see Uncle John, who was up in ICU, and Bradley's dad, John Myers, my spouse, whatever unit he was at now, I can't remember. And I don't know if it was there or at the VA in Columbia, where for the paddles to go for his heart, they had to shave the spots off his chest. The hair had to go. And I do remember that. And I remember him a number of times needing to stop what he was doing and take a nitro. He always had his little amber colored bottle with his nitro. And I don't know why it took me so long to remember that, but maybe a couple months ago, give or take, that came to my mind because I had mentioned other medicines, but I didn't mention that one. And when uh, the police brought back, brought the, well, brought his keys and billfold home to me to tell me that he wasn't coming home very soon or anytime soon. I believe she said he'd be home in a little while, but that's not how that worked out. But and then me breaking down right there and them telling me I would have to go get our van because we had gone down to talk to them that afternoon when his daughter got home on the bus, which is another crazy thing. They had taken her off the school grounds, no permission, but then I read somewhere they don't really have to have permission. But I always thought they did. So which which one of those is disinformation? One of them has to be right. They can't both be right. Anyhow, they sent her home on the school bus after that, after taking her off illegally, is what I've always thought it as, because I couldn't get any help. Nobody helped me. I had to, every bit of research came from mainly me getting on here and searching for it. Every so often, not very much, someone would give me a link they thought would I'd either be interested in or would help me. Um, but I was on my own. I had to get on the internet in '97. But that afternoon, um, our neighbor, Mrs. Cook, who's now deceased, was over at our house, and I had just asked her if she wanted some cake. It was John's birthday cake, and she said, "Oh no, I can't. Remember, I'm diabetic." Well, about that time, the stepdaughter was coming in the front door, and Mrs. Cook was headed out. And she said to her dad, "I've got to talk to you, Dad. Can I talk to you in private?" So they went to the front hall, near the front door. And then they both came back into where I was in the dining room. My dining room table was my perch. Basically, I could sit there and it was central to everything. And I had a little teeny tiny kitchen table anyway. It was kind of dark in there, so I always chose the dining room. And then she said what she had done. And she said that they had been talking girlfriend, boyfriend at school. And she was the oldest one because she had been homeschooled in Iowa. So I guess they kind of looked up to her in that regard, that she was the oldest, supposedly more wise one. but that they asked her who her boyfriend was, and she really didn't have one. So she said, my dad. And from there, they took that information to a school counselor, and that's when they took her to Marshall. Excuse me, which is about 34 miles or so from here, north of here. And I always wondered later why she didn't put up a fight. Please, social worker, don't make me go back to that crazy rapist house or something like that, you know? Don't you believe if it were you, you would have tried? I believe if it had been me, I would have tried because I was a runaway on a number of other occasions from back when I was small. So many times I can't count. And if something bothered me and it wouldn't stop, I'd leave. I'd come clear back across town. Because a couple of the first two date places I went were daycares, and both of those were across the highway. I'm 2 blocks from the highway here, and they were several blocks north, and one was even several blocks east of that. No, wait, west of that. So for a little kid to be out running around, something must have been not sitting well at all. And I remember bits and pieces, but I don't want to go there right now. I was just kind of comparing the fact that if I could run away when I was 5, and even she had made a report when she was 6 or 7, then what was stopping her when she was 13, 14, 15? The reports she made had nothing to do with her dad. The reports she made were on me. And that's only because right after school started in 94, I made a call on her because I had loaned her my good coat so she'd look nice, you know, wouldn't look like a street thing. And she said when I asked her what happened to it, because she didn't bring it home. Oh, the neighbor asked me if she could have it, so I gave it to her. And I said, you're going to get that coat back. That wasn't yours to give away. Well, she was always wanting to give stuff away. You know, we're not a commune. We're not that. We didn't have umpteen different incomes a month like they did up there and still do. Every one of those members up there, from what I found out, gave their incomes over to the group leaders, who really didn't like to be called leaders. They liked to be called some other thing. Well, of course, it's a cult. I looked it up. It's a mind control cult according to the International Cultic Studies Association. It was one of the worst mind control cults. And that the leader wants the money, well, by golly, that's who ended up with the money. And we didn't give our things away. We kept our things, you know. One time it was sandwiches. She was wanting to take, I don't know how many spare sandwiches to give away at lunch. And I always thought it was just so that she could act big, you know, wanted to go up and stand by the teacher. So I made her quit that. Next video. See you in number 3.